Leslie, what natural abilities separate remote viewers from the rest of society? And how did you become aware of your abilities?
Okay. First of all, everybody has the potential to remote view. My instructor had told me that some of the people that have the hardest times remote viewing are attorneys.
Really?
Yeah, are attorneys. She said that, well, she deals with people that are in professional fields. She's dealing with doctors, with attorneys, with
Logical.
research scientists,
Yep.
successful business people. I was probably her first housewife.
Not a
So
last, I bet.
I know I just was not, of the professional caliber, but I could do it just as well as anybody else. So everybody can do it. There will be always people that will do it better than others because it is a talent. You have to practice it. Where I got my most practice in everything was in 1991, 1992, when I was exposed to an electromagnetic field experiment. But that's something else for another day.
Mm.
Um, this uh, it's just that we're just normal people. Remote viewers are very normal people. We have bills to pay. We usually have our day jobs. We don't give those up. Um, we've got our families, and that's a challenge too because people want to immediately jump on the kids and say, "Gee, your parent is nuts.
Oh, yeah.
You've got a nuts parent."
Yep.
And so that brings a whole level of new challenges to a relationship or to your relationship with, a husband or a wife or your children.
Mm.
So there, that's a negative, but you just have to be strong within yourself and just know that this is a part of you. This is a part of your life. You contribute in a positive way when you do remote viewing projects. Um, and as far as my own natural abilities, um, I was raised in a very open-minded family. My grandmother had been a student of Edgar Cayce. In fact, she was in Edgar Cayce's home in Virginia Beach,
Oh,
Virginia.
so did she lie on the bed? Did she lie on the bed where he
No,
used to put the
I don't
there?
know. I would never hear if she did either. Um, but no, she was a student of his, and my
Wow, that's
mom.
amazing.
I
Amazing.
know, I know. My mom was Native American Indian, and so I think she had a little bit more. She was more tuned into her psychic ability.
Mm.
When it came to me for my eighth Christmas, I ended up with a Kreskin's ESP game in 1966.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandmother and I would practice sending colors and patterns to one another, sending and receiving. So if she sent the color blue and I picked up, and I would write down what I felt she was trying to send me. And so we did that back and forth for years. It was
Mm.
just a fun thing to do. Um, it was just, it was just a normal, natural thing.
Mm.
But where I got my practice and where I was using it 24/7 was in 1991. So,
Yes.
and that was intense, very intense. But
So
that had
you
nothing to do with remote viewing.
so during that time you were exposed to EMF prior
Yes,
to. Oh,
electromagnetic fields. Yeah.
wow, okay. So which we're all exposed to now on a daily
Now we
basis.
are. Yes, we are. And it's going to get worse.
So went some training to be a remote viewer. There was some kind of army training. I know there's an army training manual out there, but I'm
Right.
sure I'm sure you had something a bit more one on one or one on a small group.
Right. In my particular class, this was in 2003 in March, there was just two of us students.
Mhm.
And he was a pilot, and then there was the housewife. And he did much better sculptures than I did. Let's put it that way, too.
Oh, you got to sculpt.
We got to sculpt, and
That
I
sounds
just
like fun.
not for me.
No?
My cat, when I brought my sculpture home, my cat Xena buried my sculpture in the other cat's litter box. So
Oh, everyone's a critic, Leslie.
that's it. That was my little art critic. She
Oh,
was she was really busy. It was actually the Brandenburg Gate,
oh, okay.
and she was busy tearing the gate apart, taking the columns and burying them in my cat's name was Napoleon, in Napoleon's litter box. And I thought, well, isn't that interesting? Because Napoleon was an active figure in the Brandenburg Gate, in the
Yes.
history of the Brandenburg Gate. And I thought, well, now that's interesting. And she was just busy burying column by column. You would watch her go from tearing apart the sculpture to burying it. And I thought, wow, okay.
You may have got the reincarnated Napoleon there. So,
So yeah, anyway, to get back to your question, um, it really it's not we're trained the same way
mhm,
as the military was trained, but they don't give us all of the stages. The
okay.
military were trained to go through stage 8, I believe, and we were trained just through stages 1 through 6.
Oh, what's 7 and 8? Do we know?
I'm pretty sure that the 8th is extended remote viewing. I'm
Oh.
not sure what 7 is, but I'm just guessing. That's my guess.
So, what's
But
extended mean? Does that mean like out to space or something? Extension.
extended is where I start using my clairvoyance. That's when I
Oh, the
can,
psi element. Yeah.
right. And another thing about that is that I don't really think of it as psychic, when you remote view. It's being able to tune into a mass consciousness that has past, present, and future all in it. All information that ever was is in this mass consciousness. Your subconscious plugs into the mass consciousness when you're doing this. It's not really even psychic. They say that usually those that are clairvoyant have a harder time with the remote viewing protocol, and the clairvoyant might end up with more analytical overlays, AOLs, which may or may not have anything to do with the target. That means you'll see something, or you'll hear something that has either nothing to do with the target,
Hmm.
or it might have some symbolic connection to the target, but it's more of a challenge. So basically what you're doing when you're doing the protocol, you're basically, I say it's your subconscious basically plugging into the mass consciousness.
That sounds very much like what I think the Tibetans and the Indians recall the Akashic field. What you've
Exactly.
just, yeah, that's what you're describing, the Akashic field, which is we're just above our heads, about a meter or so. Apparently, we can just reach up if you're psychic, and you can connect to that field, and any ideas, at any one time, can be just pulled down and absorbed by the person. And a lot of people think this is the reason why a lot of people have the same idea, but in different locations or at different times. But then, they both create things which are very similar without actually knowing each other. So yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's a good way of explaining it, I think. So, what type of organisations would normally employ a remote viewer? Obviously, the government.
Right. Whenever you're dealing with intelligence gathering, I'm pretty sure that you will find a remote viewing unit in there somewhere, because we're just about as effective as any other type of intelligent gathering. like human intelligence gathering.
That's
Human.
impressive. That's
Yeah,
very
it is
impressive.
impressive. It is impressive. What we do when I went to work for Nevada Remote Viewing Group, you work as a team. And so what they do, you all view the same thing, independent of one another. An analyst goes through all of your viewings to come up with a final presentation to whoever the client is, whether the
Hmm.
client is government, military, or just in the private sector somewhere.
So
And
I
oh, I'm
suppose
sorry.
I was going to say, I suppose going along that theme, sometimes you'd be given something, you'd have absolutely no idea really what if your outcome's spot on. You would just do what you could and then hand it back. So in a way, it's a bit of a thankless job sometimes, isn't it? Because you never
Well,
know if you're spot on.
it is true. You never ever know what the final, outcome was.
Mm,
Um, the only person that knows is the person who hired you,
yes.
and that's it. But there was one viewing that I did that was time was of the essence. A pilot, and they didn't tell us this, but this was something I gathered as I was viewing. A pilot had crashed in the Himalayas. He was from Kazakhstan.
Hmm.
For some really bizarre reason, well, we ended up with an emergency viewing from the Department of Defense. The Pakistani army was looking for him. And I know that I tuned in right immediately, right into him. I could see him. I could see the ice cave that he was making. I could see what he was trying to do to survive.
Mm,
And I have never gotten emotionally involved with anyone before, but that person I sure did. I wanted
yeah.
him to stay alive. And I was right there with him. I did my viewing. We were also supposed to locate the area, in the Himalayas that he had gone down in. So I sent that off. And I had like 15, 20 minutes to do this.
Mm,
And then I sent it off, but then I couldn't let go of it. I was not about to let go of that viewing. And I was with him basically night and day. And finally, I asked someone within the Department of Defense, and I said, I know we're not supposed to do this. And I know that, I'm wrong to ask, but could you possibly, in some way, let me know if that person came out alive and is back to where, back with their family? That was very important to me. And then just right out of the blue, I got this uh, photograph of this young man. He was the same as I had seen him. I knew who he was. And they said he was a pilot from Kazakhstan. He was surrounded by the Pakistani army.
mm,
And, they all were talking about the rescue. I got this article. It came out of the blue. And I was happy. I was
yeah.
able to let it go. But during that, I was even telling that man, I said, hang in there. They're coming. And the Pakistani army is such and such at a distance away from you. It was almost as if I was viewing him from a satellite. Is
Mm,
how weird this was. And it was like, the Pakistani army is over here, you're over here. They will get to you in such and such and such a time. Please hang in there, please.
mm,
And I don't even know what my boss came up with. I have no idea what the remote viewers did with that particular project because we never get the results. But it was me calling somebody that I shouldn't have called. But I told them up front, I know I'm not supposed to know, but I
mm.
have to know that he's okay and that he's
So,
safe.
so is it usually a person they're looking for, or is it more of an object that they like you to find? Is it normally, is that what you're trying to find, something or some person?
It can be a something. Um, uh, but this was a person, this was a rescue. Um, I've known people who were involved with hostage situations that were, viewing for the military, doing operational viewings.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah, and very successful. And that's where you use remote influence. And I was never good at remote influence. We did a remote influence for the first time during training, and it was horrible for me. I I just sat there and I said, I don't think this is my thing. But I did a horrible job of it. But it's to influence
The
the
subject.
well, or the hostage takers,
Oh, yes.
to do certain things, maybe to free up the hostage to be able to do something else that they need to survive.
Yeah.
So, it can be very, very crucial or very critical. Um, and I'm just, those are the kinds of projects that I've had, or projects that are in existence, that it's important. Those are the successes of remote viewing.
Yeah. I suppose there's also a lot of stuff that you might be think is more spy related, which maybe you don't feel as good about doing, whereas a hostage situation is, makes you feel better about
Yeah.
what, yeah, big
Well, then,
difference. Mm.
the spying goes to the intelligence. That's in the intelligence field. Those are the units that belong, in the CIA, or the FBI. They have their own units, and that's their arena.
Mm.
Is the spy thing goes with the military, and those three-letter acronyms,
Mm.
um, or four-letter acronyms, depending. I knew someone that worked for the Naval Criminal Investigative Services,
Mm-hmm.
NCIS. So, I know that they exist.
Mm.
I know that those types of individuals exist in those organizations to spy.
Mm.
Um, and some have even spied on me. I,
Sadly.
I know. I had one from Fallon actually come to visit me.
Mm.
And
Wow.
I showed him my training sessions. I said, "Well, here's my CRV training sessions." And he was going, "Oh, whoa, great!" It was nice.
Mm.
But it's okay. It's all okay. I'm very open.
Mm.
Um, I have to be, and I
Yeah,
can't
it's
I can't be anything else.
no, it's wonderful you've stayed that way, to be honest. So in layman terms, do you think you could kind of explain the process to someone who might want to say have a go?
Well, here, I've got my training sessions with me.
Oh, excellent.
And this is just stage one. This is
Okay,
just
that's all we want.
Yeah, this is just stage one. And you usually put your name, where you are, your date and your time, who is monitoring you,
Okay.
your stage one practice, advanced visuals. Now, if you've got, something weird going on in your mind, you've got to clear it out. So if you say none, you write none. If you have a spiral, you draw yourself a spiral. And then also you put your personal inclemencies. Like if you've got an itch somewhere
Oh,
that you need to
okay.
scratch or something. And I put still nervous, performance anxiety, scared to be wrong.
Yeah.
That was
Hmm.
my personal inclemency. And then we write the number of the session on there,
Hmm.
followed by an ideogram. Now I have a
Oh,
story
okay.
about my ideograms, but in training, you're given a binder and you're shown, what different ideograms are, and then you have to practice these ideograms.
Mhm.
Well, I never did. I was a busy mom and had a lot to deal with. I was tired from sun up to sundown. When I went through the remote viewing training, I was exhausted. I felt like my brain had been put through a blender.
I'll
So,
bet.
yeah, and I did not read the training manual, which I didn't know that I was supposed to do before the remote viewing classes. And so I just, I think I read the first 3 pages the first night, and that was it. I never got any further than that. And then with the binder, I gave up on that. But even though I would do the ideogram, and my boss even said this, she said, Leslie, all of your ideograms are exactly the same. They're not supposed to be the same. You know, it's supposed to give you an idea of whether you're talking about land or sea or
Oh.
sky,
Mhm.
some kind of an idea. No, 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 not for me. No, I had this one particular doodle, and it was always the same for every session. But you start using a pen and you outline your ideogram,
Mhm.
and then under A, you have to describe your ideogram. Line dips down and loops over, and then you have to write down what you're feeling from that ideogram. And I put soft, weightless, hard. And then under B, you have to decide whether it's living or not, or whether it's an object. And I put a biological. Session summary. Sight is perceived to be a biological unit up in the air. End of session, 4:23 p.m. And I started at 4:19. This was this was what I was supposed to view. Do you see it?
Ah, yes, like some type of fox. Is it a
Yes.
fox?
It was a
Yeah.
fox up in a tree on a tree limb.
Ah, yes.
So I had picked up on the biological up in the air.
Mm. That was pretty good.
So that was session one. And that gives you an idea. Um, I do have to say, I know that you had also mentioned in one of your questions, um, have you ever used your abilities to secure your own survival or the safety of a family member?
Yeah.
This relates a little bit into that.
Mhm.
I was able to teach remote viewing to a small group of high school students who were the top of their class. The reason I had done that is I was being attacked by Pakistan with electromagnetic fields.
Mm.
I couldn't do the viewing myself, so I asked these kids to do viewings and to give me the information. I needed intelligence information right away. In 15 minutes, I had information from 5 different individuals that told me exactly what I needed to know.
Cool.
That's how easy it is. And sometimes you don't even have to go through the entire protocol. You can only you only have to use just certain key elements that are the most vital. And I just used stage one.
Mm.
But these kids were able to tell me, they drew a mosque for me. One of
Yeah.
them drew a mosque. One of them drew, um, the, the detonator bomb jacket thing, whatever that was. They said terrorist, and they said other things. One of the operators of that attack was a former advisor to Libya who had helped Muammar Gaddafi, involved with the worldwide terrorism. And so, I kind of wondered if some of their operations were being conducted from the mosque.
Mm.
And I did find out that they had new laboratory equipment from the United States located in Islamabad. So, yeah, I had a very exciting time. But those kids
Mm.
with just stage
Yes.
one, were able to give me the information that I needed. And I got into trouble for that. But it was survival on my part. It
Mm.
was the only thing that I could do because a lot of people don't understand that electromagnetic stuff is extremely serious.
Oh, yeah. It's very, very dangerous.
It's
That's
deadly,
this
and
whole.
you have
Yeah. this
Yeah.
whole 5G thing is very scary.
Oh,
So,
yeah. Yes.
yeah, it's definitely a population decreasing technology, isn't it?
It is. It
Yeah.
is. Um, this should be one that will be near and dear to your heart too.
Oh, okay.
This is stage 1, 2, and 3. It's a practice. And again, I start at 4:40 p.m. My advanced visual was a spiral. My
Mm-hmm.
personal inclemency was tired. I was always tired in this. It didn't matter. I was always exhausted. Um, we we wrote down our number, and then we wrote down our ideogram, or drew out our ideogram, and begin to put our pencil to, we just dot
Mm-hmm.
along the ideogram. And then I have a line curving to the right, sloping down inward to a smaller horizontal loop, moving, sloping down to a larger loop, going upwards towards a rather peaked loop, sloping downward to another loop, counterclockwise, and evening out. And then later I put soft, hard, dryness. B. And then this was when I started getting an idea of interface of grasslands and mountainous. Now you
Sounds
can
like
see
Uluru.
exactly. That's exactly what
Is that what it is?
I on my stage or practice here I put green, wind, blue, wispy, browns, yellow. My AOL break was a field of yellow flowers. That's when I started seeing something that may or may not have had something to do with the target. And I put cool, steep, and then I put an what they call an emotional break. I put excited, exhilarated, jagged, white, striations, uneven, granular, wind, movement of biological green stuff. I didn't know what it was, but it was green stuff. In term summary, interface of grasslands, mountain, green, blue, mountains, yellow, steep, striations, uneven, granular, movement of biological green stuff. Grasslands, expansive, mountain, large, steep, granular, striated, forms peak, massive browns, black, dense, and I started to draw it. And I'm getting more excited. And then I had another AOL break, a volcano, neck down into below the surface. And then she said, move to 150 feet in the air, look down on the mountain, and describe. And I said, a sense of indentation. Move a mile away from the mountain and describe. And I said, massive in reds. Then I have massive, steep, indentations, sandy, granular material, rocky. Session summary, final session summary was interface of grasslands, mountain green, blue, browns, yellow, steep, striations, uneven, granular movement of biological green stuff, reds, dense, massive indentations, sandy, granular material, rocky. I perceived the site to be a mountain with grasslands below. End of session was 5:10 p.m. And here we have
Uluru.
yeah,
Yep.
exactly. So that was up to stage 3. That was my stage 3 practice.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it's you can see, the progression.
Yes.
But I didn't have it all completely right. But the session summary started making it look a little bit more like Uluru.
Yeah. No. That's as soon as you started describing it, I knew exactly what you were talking about.
Yeah, yeah. You had it right there at the beginning. So yeah.
Mm. No, it's funny. I had a metaphysical night here the other night, and we did some psychometry, which is where you get somebody's jewelry, and we had it in a brown paper bag, and we put the jewelry in it, and we just held it, and we just focused on the bag and what was inside it, and the hit rate was 50 to 100% for everybody in the room. So it's yeah. I was actually quite surprised at the hit rate, and everyone covered 6 topics about whoever the object was, like career, what their house looked like, their personality, hobbies, and emotions. So basically, everyone had to come up with 6 things about that person. And as I said, the hit rate was huge. And this was probably 15 people. So, and that's, that's basically, and there was only probably 2 people there that actually did any mediumship. The rest were newbies.
Yeah.
So it's, you're right. Everybody has this ability of some type, don't they?
Well, I think it helps too to be in a group of people that are plugging into the ability as well. I think it helps you. I think it helps you to plug in. I think that, if you have larger classes of people, yeah, I think you pick up on them too. I think we're all interconnected.
I hadn't thought about that till then. So, what would a person who remote views feel and or experience during a typical session? So let's say the Uluru experiment. What were you actually feeling temperature change as well, or were you just feeling like a need to know?
I felt more of a need to know. I didn't feel anything. And that's another thing that we do in our classes. We also do a sensitization to colors, textures, to weather. Um, and that's something that we had to go out and do, and it's actually start looking at color and describing things that we would see in our environment, like a field trip, to the lake or what have you, and we would have to write down everything that we would see. So it would sensitize you. I have had that happen in sessions where I was actually able to smell garlic from a restaurant.
Yes, that's what I was
And wine.
wondering. Yes,
Red wine and garlic. I had a very strong sense. And that was during an extended remote viewing session. Not
okay.
CRV, but it was remote. Now, there was a session done. I call it my geology practice session. And I think it was through stage 5. And I actually started smelling the soil. And I said, it smells Cretaceous. It smelled, well, I've been in soils before. I took a geology course. I've been in soils before where when it was damp, you could smell it. I mean, you could smell the formation. And it was like, this smells Cretaceous, with all the smashed up dinosaur bones, everything else. I mean, it was like, this smells, it just smells Cretaceous. And my boss was looking at me really funny. How can you smell Cretaceous? The Cretaceous period. But I just said it smells Cretaceous.
Well, it smells like fossils, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Fossils have like I don't know, not a very pleasant smell.
Well, to me, I actually kind of like that. I mean, it was kind of weird, but here, let me. Oh, I did a crop circle one. Um, oh gosh, it was just stage 1. It was a stage 1 practice. That was kind of interesting too. I was actually able to pick up that it was man-made.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah,
Interesting.
it was not. Um, okay, this is the geology one. I don't know. Can you see that?
Oh, yes, yes. Oh,
Okay.
yes. What huge rock. Yeah.
Right. Um, okay. I ended up with that one. And my session summary for the last page was the terrain. Landscape is reddish, mountainish, ruggedness, dry, valley below. Rocky soil, bone fragments, sandy, mushed together, conglomerate, smashed conglomerate. The biologicals are scientists, different disciplines, geology, archaeology, paleontology, study of the universe. Activity, study in soil on top, above valley, not quite on the mountaintop, plateau in dirt on hands and knees, something about a spherical shape. Heavy, heavy, they're studying the shape, get samples by brushing and chipping. End of session.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was
And
spot
here,
on.
Yeah, and that's exactly what they were doing,
Yes.
was brushing and
Yes.
chipping. So, yeah, you start, and that's again, this is just practice.
It the extended seems to take you to maybe the senses, extends the senses. Would that be the difference? Like you can actually feel temperature, or you can sense more than just, so instead of just viewing something, you're actually in the environment. It's kind of encompassing everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, the extended remote viewing that is taught by the Fort Meade, Maryland, and Stanford Research Institute was different than the extended remote viewing that I was taught to do later on by a former Jesuit priest who had become a nuclear physicist at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory.
Oh yeah, JPL.
And he had taught me a particular form of extended remote viewing where you use a platform and you actually blast off to your target.
Yeah.
And you're going to laugh at mine. Mine was Lord Croft, Angelina Jolie,
Ah, yes, yes.
Tomb Raider, and she was my character, and she would blast off the platform to the target. And this one time, at this place, it was really interesting. I landed on a wall. And as soon as I got down into the wall, I had spike heels and a pantsuit, or kind of like a jumpsuit kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I realized I was inappropriately dressed. I even said that during the session. I'm inappropriately dressed, and I could feel the cobblestones underneath my feet. I could smell the garlic and the wine coming out of restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
I could uh, I could feel the fountain, the water splashing from a fountain.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually at the Vatican City.
Oh,
I
okay.
was actually
Yes.
at the Vatican. And I didn't know that I was at the Vatican, but I was experiencing all this different stuff. Um, and the guy that was, yeah, well, the priest that was monitoring me, he was kind of laughing because to himself because it was just so indicative of things that he'd even forgotten about the Vatican City that he had been to. So I think he was amused,
Yes.
especially.
Did you were you tasting gelati as well? That, is that
No,
that's my memory of the Vatican.
no.
Eating coffee gelati.
Well, no, it was just really interesting. And two, being, who I am, I've never traveled to any of these places. So that was another thing, being the housewife, the non-professional in their field, you know, um, not traveled at all. Um, here I am remote viewing all these different places and being able to gather this information.
Maybe that's why you were good at it. You hadn't been influenced prior.
Maybe,
That's
maybe,
probably why your reporting was so much clearer.
maybe. I don't know. I
Like
don't.
a fresh, like you're a fresh piece of paper.
That's it. Yeah,
Yes.
probably.
So, can you give us an example of a business project or a government mission in the field where where you used your remote viewing abilities to your mind successfully? So you were very proud of yourself for that. Apart from the finding the guy, of course.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
Himalayan. That
yeah.
was my crowning moment. Was the Himalayan rescue. Uh, and I did step out of protocol a little bit here and there, because with what I did, I don't think you're supposed to do, but I went ahead and did it anyway because I felt like it was important for his survival.